This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 528 of Horse Tip Daily. A different horse tip, a different equine topic, a different equestrian expert every day. Horse Tip Daily brings the world of equine knowledge to you one day at a time. Today's tip is brought to you by ECOGOLD, leader in equestrian textile engineering. Hi, Coach Jen here, and thanks for tuning in to Horse Tip Daily. Today's tip is from Dr. Wendy Ying. Dr. Wendy Ying is a successful four-in-hand competitive driver and co-host of the driving radio show here on the Horse Radio Network. Additionally, she is a doctor of veterinary medicine that also practices traditional Chinese medicine. Today's tip is about weekend warrior syndrome, how you or your horse get it, what to do about it, and best of all, how to avoid it altogether. But first, a word from today's sponsor, ECOGOLD. ECOGOLD is a team of experts in the field of textile engineering with more than 50 years of experience in high-performance fabrics. Top international riders like Philip Dutton, Karen O'Connor, McLean Ward, Scott Stewart, Sean French, Ashley Holzer, and many more ride in their state-of-the-art saddle pads and help them develop new products at ECOGOLD. In high-level sports, the right product can give an athlete a competitive edge. And in recent years, there have been several developments in textiles. Just think of sports like hiking, skiing, or cycling, and garments using things like Lycra, Teflon, and Gore-Tex. How about using those high-tech fabrics and smart engineering to improve the performance of our equine athletes? Well, that's where ECOGOLD comes in. With their expertise and contacts in the textile industry, they are able to bring the latest developments in technology to the equestrian market and make the most advanced products to give the horses competitive edge. And they don't have a one-size-fits-all mentality. They use different technologies and different solutions to solve different issues. So ask for ECOGOLD saddle pads and protective boots by name at your local tack store or visit them online at ecogold.ca. Now, enjoy today's tip.
Now we're going to share a little bit about what it's like to be a Chinese medicine doctor.
That's right. Well, this week's topic is weekend warrior syndrome because I did weekend warrior syndrome to myself because I was not taking care of myself. I was running around all weekend, and then I lifted up this big heavy thing without bending my knees, and pow. Now I'm limping around. My back's killing me. I've been whining about it for days. And but why it's important for Chinese vet medicine is because this is a very common injury of driving horses, of riding horses too. But basically, I've torn my sacroiliac ligament, and your sacroiliac ligament is a ligament that attaches your pelvis to your sacrum, which is part of your spine.
Okay.
So it's like your lower back. Whenever your lower back hurts, and so I'm kind of hunched over, and I can't take big steps. So I'm like walking like a little Chinese person with bound feet. That's all I can do. If I take a big step, oh my God, it's so painful. So the thing is about this injury is if I didn't know the history, I would think, oh, it just all of a sudden happened when I picked that up. But that's not true. These kind of injuries are insidious, and they go on like it's a chronic problem that's been happening like over 6 months to a year, and then all of a sudden the horse can't compensate anymore. So you start noticing like, wow, well, his trot used to be so free before, or why isn't he taking that lead, or why are they stiffer on one side than the other? So you start seeing these little problems, and it's just little micro tears that get bigger and bigger until there's something that just happens. I would say sometimes, you'll be riding your horse and then all of a sudden it'll just take off bucking and you don't know why, like something bit it. Well, that's what it feels like. They all of a sudden just take a step or step in a little hole and your back spasms and you can't do anything about it, and it's really painful. You can't push them through it. It's not going to get better. And the back is very difficult to treat, especially with horses, because just if you wanted to inject steroids in there, for instance, you'd have to have a really long needle, and then usually it's ultrasound guided. But with Chinese medicine, the way we treat it is rest is very important. and then some kind of herbal therapy where you get rid of the stagnation, which is stagnation is the pain and spasm. So you need to relax the back. And also you need to fix the inflammation in the joints. But, it's a ligament tear. So as we all know, like if you tore your flexor tendon or something, that takes like 6 months to repair. So even though I'm going to feel better next week, my back's not fixed. And if I keep pushing myself, I'll just keep re-injuring my back, which I have done. I have done this over the last year, is I just keep re-injuring it because I don't rest.
And that same thing happens to your horses. You think they're better, and then you start working them because you're healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're going okay.
Right.
Because horses are great compensators. Like animals, if they don't compensate, then they look lame in the herd, and the lions are going to go after that one. And like dogs are really difficult to see lameness because they're compensators, and they deal with it. They deal with it. They don't say, "Oh, my back's killing me." But there's little signs that you have to say. If you're hearing those signs from them, you need to investigate it. So, with horses, a lot of times too, and this is very timely for driving people, because one of the things I have started to recommend since I did this to my own back is if I diagnose this in a horse, I tell them to please stop driving for at least a month. Because even though you're only driving a little bit or, whatever, you can't always say that the carriage is not going to go in a little piece, in a bit of sand, or you're pulling up a hill or whatever. You don't really rest them if you keep driving them. So if they're okay and you can keep riding, I'll let the people do that. If they can give them total rest, that's probably good.
It's probably the best thing, actually.
It's hard to get people to do that.
Yeah.
And at certain times of the year, people can't.
Or
if you're right in the middle of competition season,
right.
Do you say, okay, I'm out, or that horse is out if you have a multiple or pair? But really, every step with the carriage is stress on the lumbosacral area. So I think that in the past I haven't been so aggressive about saying like no driving, but now that I've done it to my own self, I know that it's probably the best treatment.
Now, what as far as prevention of that is exercise and
conditioning. And like for example, for me, I should probably be doing yoga and Pilates and strengthen my core. So I need to strengthen my abs. So with the horses, you also need to do that. You need to strengthen their abdominal muscles so that can protect the back. You also need to, they call it weekend warrior syndrome because you can't overdo it at a show. Like if you're not ready and conditioned for a show and you show up at a show and it's really muddy, just think about how much heavier your carriage gets. Mm-hmm. Or if you train all the time at home in your marathon carriage with nobody on the back, and then you go to the show with four-in-hand horses, not a huge deal because they have to pull huge weight. But say like your favorite pony at the CDE. That's a tiny pony.
Yeah.
So say she trains at home with a light carriage. Then she has to go and do a marathon on hills with a four-wheel carriage and her friend. That's a lot of extra weight. It could put the pony over the weight that he really should be pulling.
Right.
So I think that conditioning, this is a stress-related injury, so conditioning to prepare for the stress is the best thing. And if you're worried about it, you could just back off. Or sometimes you have to say, look, I'm not ready for this show. I can't go. Like my guys have been on vacation for a long time. So like all they could handle was the parade. And even that was a little stressful for them. But I'm going to have to be very conscientious about bringing them back slowly.
Right. Yeah. No marathon courses the second day.
No. And it's good to also know the weight of your carriage. So it doesn't hurt to weigh your carriage and find out how much all your stuff weighs. And then say to yourself, well, can my horse do this? And maybe your horse can do it. I'm not saying that there's a certain number, because people always want that number.
I know, and we had that question actually asked not too long ago.
But you can't say a number.
Yeah, no, people usually use, twice the weight of the horse. But That's not a magic number either.
It's not a magic number. This is something, a relationship issue with you and your horse, that you need to figure out what they're physically capable of doing without hurting themselves.
And some will be more than that number, and some will be less.
Right.
Yeah.
And it all depends on their conformation,
right.
their stamina, like their attitude. For example, if you have an earth horse that you overface, they could get really bitter if you overface them. They might not even be sore. They're just like, look, I don't like working, and you make me pull this really heavy carriage all the time, and they think you're unfair. Whereas maybe a wood horse would be like, I don't care if my back hurts. I am going to pull this carriage through sand, mud, blah, blah, blah. But now that one is really going to hurt himself.
Right.
So even though
He'll do it.
Yeah, you think, oh, my pony loves this because he just chugs along. Well, he might love it because maybe he's like a adrenaline junkie. But they could be doing a lot of damage to their back. And I mean, I think that's why I did it to mine, because I just kept going, and my back kind of hurt. But I was like, whatever, I'm just going to keep going. So I needed to back off and change and get in shape and stop doing stupid things. But our horses don't have that choice to say, oh, I was so stupid, I shouldn't have pulled that heavy carriage. So you have to be that person for them and make sure they're conditioned.
All right. Weekend warrior syndrome.
Yes.
Wendy Ying has personal experience.
Well, there you go. Thanks, Wendy and Glenn the Geek. To listen to all of Wendy's tips, just go to horsetipdaily.com and go to the Experts drop-down menu on the left. You can also go to her website at 5elements4animals. Use digits, don't spell them out. 5elements4animals.com. If you just can't get enough of Wendy and Glenn, you can listen to them every week on the Driving Radio Show, drivingradioshow.com. Please stop by the Horse Tip Daily Facebook page and let us know what you think of the tips you hear on the show. It's also a great place to tell us about topics you'd like to hear us cover. You can subscribe to all of the great shows on the Horse Radio Network through iTunes or Zune and get your horse podcasts automatically downloaded to your iPod, Zune, or MP3 player. I'll be back again tomorrow with another new expert and a different horse tip. Until then, go ride your horse! The Horse Radio Network and the Horse Radio Network hosts are not responsible for statements of guests or their opinions. Use your own judgment when listening to the tips provided by the experts on Horse Tip Daily.